Hello, good evening. Welcome to Northwest Tonight, Wednesday evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Roger Johnson. Here's our top story. Anger over the £20 million sea defences in West Kirby, which didn't stop the water.
Everybody was up in arms about the concept of a wall. Aesthetically, it's turned out to be okay, but functionally, it's not done its job.
Well, the council says it did, amid calls for an investigation. Also tonight, Victoria's grieving parents are arrested after their furious response to a coroner's findings over her death.
There goes on with Murphy!
Murphy on becoming a cocaine addict after retiring from professional football. Cantering to Aintree. We're at the Cheshire Stables with high hopes for this week's Grand National Festival.
And after another very wet day for many of us, when are things going to improve? Well, signs are that tomorrow it's going to be nicer. I'll bring you all the details at the end of the programme.
So when are flood defences not flood defences? That's the question being asked on the Wirral coast this evening, because high tides yesterday saw waves pouring over a seawall and floodgates which had recently been completed at a cost of £20 million. A local councillor has now called for a full investigation into how it performed, but his own council and the Environment Agency say that the seawall worked as it should, preventing catastrophic damage. Lindsay Prosser has this report.
Cars are floating around on West Kirby's promenade. A high tide and very strong winds meant water came over the sea wall. That water then took time to drain away. The council says the wall did its job by limiting damage, but some residents and businesses are not happy.
Well, it's devastating, really, because your heart and soul's gone into it. And, you know, to see it all drenched and contaminated is heartbreaking.
Cafe owner Hannah Cleater is clearing up. Her storeroom was flooded, and although water didn't go into her cafe, it was surrounded, so customers had to be rescued by the RNLI. Hannah expected the sea wall to offer more protection.
I'm disappointed, very disappointed. I don't feel it's done its job. I have spoken to the council and they've reassured me that obviously when they built the wall, a whole new drainage system was put in as well, so that it didn't hold the water in. But it seems to be just grids. So although it has drained slowly, it's been a very slow process.
The council says yesterday's flooding was a result of an extreme weather event, and in such cases water will come over the top of the sea wall. But it says the wall reduced the power of the waves and protected properties from being damaged.
The sea wall cost nearly £20 million. There was mixed feelings to it being built, and now there's also mixed feelings on how successful it is.
There was a lot of work gone into it, and then I was surprised that it kind of went over the wall. It was kind of crazy.
Very surprised, and it isn't something that I expected to happen.
I'm a sailor, so I knew the tides. I knew it was a 10.4 metre with the 2 metre swell, so you're always going to get water coming over, but the wall took the force of it. And that's what a lot of people don't realise.
The leader of the Liberal Democrats on Wirral Borough Council has asked for an inquiry into how the wall performed yesterday, so there's a clear understanding of how much flooding it can stop. Lindsay Prosser, BBC Northwest Tonight, West Kirby.
Simon with the forecast at the end of the programme. Now, there were furious scenes in a coroner's court today, and the parents of a 12-year-old girl were arrested. This is Victoria Alabed. She died of a stroke at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital 4 years ago. Her family had wanted answers about her treatment from the inquest, but the coroner found that there wasn't enough evidence to decide if different treatment might have saved her. Andy Gill was in court.
Victoria Alabed was described by her mum as a beautiful girl who would light up a whole room. Victoria had sickle cell anemia, a disease mainly affecting people of African and Caribbean background. She died of a stroke at Manchester Children's Hospital in July 2019. A hospital report in 2020 said that failings had contributed to her death, and it apologised. There was a 3-day delay in getting a scan, and staff concentrated too much on her sickle cell problems. But at her inquest today, the coroner ruled that Victoria died of natural causes. At the point where the coroner said that Victoria had died of natural causes, her parents, Elizabeth and Victor, became extremely angry and extremely agitated. Both stood up and approached the coroner's desk. Mrs. Alabed shouted and threatened to punch court staff if they approached her. She knocked water jugs off the court desks. The court was cleared and police were called. When officers arrived, they detained both of Victoria's parents. When the inquest resumed more than an hour later, Victoria's father and brother were in court, but her mother was not. The coroner said, "On the balance of probabilities, there is insufficient evidence to state that Victoria would have avoided the terminal event which caused her death. In my judgment, Victoria has died from a naturally occurring illness. Whilst I have found failures in her care, none of these failures more than minimally contributed to her death on the balance of probabilities." Afterwards, the family said they don't accept the verdict.
It's not ending here. We're going to fight, and they should be ready. We're going to take it further. We're going to appeal the ruling, and it is our right, and justice is what we need now.
The hospital fell short of the high standards it aspires. Greater Manchester Police say Victoria's mum was arrested on suspicion of a public order offence. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Manchester.
Now, a 16-year-old boy is reported to be in a critical condition in hospital this evening after a stabbing in South Liverpool. Police say the boy arrived at an address on Woodlands Road in Aigburth with 2 stab wounds to his chest. 2 16-year-olds, a boy and a girl, are being questioned by police after being arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. The Prime Minister's rejected suggestions that he should have stopped the Hazel Grove MP William Ragg from sitting as a Conservative MP after he shared fellow MPs' phone numbers with someone who contacted him on a dating app. Mr Ragg resigned the Tory whip and will now sit as an independent.
William Ragg has apologised and taken action to resign, and it's a reminder to everybody in public life about being sceptical and suspicious about unsolicited emails and messages that come into you. There are lots of people out there who want to subvert our democracy, and we have to be on guard for that.
An Everton football supporter has been banned from matches for 3 years for so-called tragedy chanting. Mark Finnegan was seen making gestures at Manchester United supporters at the recent Premier League game at Old Trafford, which was said to be mocking the Munich air disaster. He was also fined. Muslims across the northwest have been celebrating the end of the fasting month of Ramadan and celebrating the festival of Eid al-Fitr. Mosques like this one in Blackburn were full for prayers this morning. It is, of course, one of the biggest celebrations in the Muslim calendar.
It's going back to normality and trying to take something back from Ramadan and bring that and implement that into our lives.
To spend the time with your loved ones, make a special prayer for the people who are suffering in the world, because we are better off than a lot of people in this world.
Now, the former footballer, Liverpool footballer Danny Murphy, has revealed that he became addicted to cocaine after he stopped playing in 2013. Murphy, who also played for Crewe and Blackburn during his 20-year career, told the Ben Heath podcast that he found it hard to cope without the adrenaline rush of playing in the top flight. Paresh Patel reports.
When you play football, you've got the joy of football and the competitiveness and all the things with the adrenaline, the dopamine, all those things, to keep you forward-thinking and energetic, irrelevant of the other issues.
After spells at Spurs, Charlton Athletic and Fulham, Danny Murphy joined Blackburn Rovers in 2011. He finally retired 2 years later. Today, in a candid interview with the Ben Heath podcast, the 47-year-old recalled how he struggled to cope with life's problems without the spotlight of football.
When you've got issues without football, these issues become huge. They're like mountains. But when you were playing, they were fine. Because you had finances coming in. Yeah. You also had support from everyone and anyone.
Danny Murphy says money problems, the breakup of his marriage and the delayed grief of losing his father sent him spiralling downwards into drug use.
It was more coke with me. Cocaine, I had a spell on cocaine and smoking some weed, and the drink was I could live without it.
Did you feel like you were addicted to cocaine?
For a while I was. Yeah, because I got to the point where I didn't think I could do things without it.
Right, okay.
Which was nonsense.
Yeah.
Of course I could. And what you do, and anybody would tell you, you know, like any drug or any addiction, you manage it initially. You know, you might do it once a week, twice a week, give yourself an extra third day, and then it just quickly...
And a big reaction expected from Liverpool. Wounded animal, aren't they? And I think the advantage they've got is...
Today, Danny Murphy is one of Britain's top football pundits, working for broadcasters like Sky, talkSPORT and BBC's Match of the Day.
The frustrating thing is, it's a penalty for me, because so many times this season we've
Murphy says other footballers have reached out to him today with their addictions. He's urging them to seek counselling and group therapy.
I think going through that has made me a much better dad.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't a bad dad before, but a much better dad. I'm a better son. I'm a better brother. I think I'll be a better partner.
Get a bin, Dave, get a bin!
Paresh Patel, BBC North West Tonight.
Now this is Caitlin Huddleston. In 2017, when she was 18, Caitlin and her friend Sky Mitchell were killed after Sky lost control of her car on a rural road in Cumbria. She'd only passed her driving test 4 months earlier. Well, now Caitlin's mum has joined other families campaigning for graduated driving licences, which would prevent young, newly qualified drivers from carrying passengers for the first 6 months. Abby Smitten has this report.
Nearly every day for the last 7 years, Sharon has sat by her daughter Caitlin's grave.
Just quiet in the house without her. She turned to me and she asked, "Do I look okay, Mum?" And I said yes. And then as she left the house, I just saw the long black hair, the back of her head as she shut the back door. And that was the last time that I saw her alive.
15 minutes after she walked out the door, Caitlin was killed. She'd accepted a lift from a friend who lost control of her car. It collided with an oncoming van.
I was just aching for Caitlin, and that yearning for her will never go away.
Caitlin's friend, the driver, was also killed in the crash. She'd only passed her test 4 months earlier. Sharon's campaigning for better controls over what newly qualified drivers can do.
Hello, everybody. I'm really, really grateful to all of you for joining us in this group.
Everyone on this call has lost a loved one in similar tragic circumstances to Sharon. They call themselves the Forget-Me-Not Families Uniting. They're joining forces to call for graduated driving licences. They'd restrict things like how many passengers new drivers can carry. The scheme's already in place in countries including Canada and New Zealand.
But the thing that people also don't know is that 50% of people who are killed in crashes involving young drivers are not in the young driver car.
Robin and Patsy have been campaigning for change for nearly 40 years.
It really feels like, you know, the whole thing is gaining momentum now. In 1986, we were very much lone voices. But now, with all of you as well, I'm sorry for all your losses, but it hopefully we will get something achieved now.
The government says there are no plans to introduce graduated driving licences, but Sharon has been fighting for 7 years already. Now, surrounded by so many other families who want the same thing as her, she's even more determined.
Knowing Caitlin like I know Caitlin, she would be backing me fully with this and saying, yeah, come on, Mum, do this and get this done for other kids so that they're not taken away from their families.
Sharon Huddleston there, talking to Abby Smitten. NWT at bbc.co.uk is the email if you have a view or maybe an experience to share. Now, what do we do with nuclear waste? This is Sellafield. Some of it can be safely burned and destroyed, but the most lethal waste has to be buried hundreds of metres underground. Now, the government is now looking at potential sites to store that, and one of the suggested locations is in Cumbria. Well, communities there are demanding to be given more of a say in the final decision, as Bob Cooper now explains.
Sellafield in West Cumbria is where most of Britain's nuclear waste is stored. But the government wants to move the most dangerous material to a geological disposal facility, or GDF, where it would be permanently sealed up to 1 kilometre below ground or below the seabed. About 20 miles south is the parish of Witcham, one of the areas where officials are searching for a potential site, which could take 15 years. But local resident Tim doesn't want to see it on his doorstep.
The scale of the project is way too big for this area. The infrastructure that we have, there's promises to improve, but it is, I don't think people quite really grasp the enormity of the project.
But Joan, from just down the road in Haverig, supports the idea.
I can't see anything but a benefit of moving such things. Goodness knows how many hundreds of feet below ground in a bedrock, which I would imagine is quite safe.
Parts of West Cumbria or Lincolnshire could be the eventual site. An anti-nuclear group opposed to the GDF wants other areas to follow Witcham and give people a say.
The geological disposal facility, or a nuclear waste dump, is a massive engineering project that's going to impact on communities for tens of years. If people are really going to be engaged, it's important to regularly take the public temperature, and one way of doing that is by each parish council holding a regular parish poll to determine the level of support for the proposal.
Cumberland Council will ultimately decide if the GDF can be built here. It says parish councils don't need to do polls. The body in charge of the project, Nuclear Waste Services, says it monitors local opinion using a professional polling company. Bob Cooper, BBC North West Tonight, Cumbria.
Now, this is a skill which few people have these days, or certainly fewer people, definitely one that I don't have, sewing, of course. And as we all know, the days when the mills here provided so much of the world's cotton products are long gone. So you would think that demand for skilled textile machinists had long gone. Well, that's not the case, because there is an acute skills shortage in the industry. And in one part of Lancashire, they've set up a free training project to try to sort that out, as Mike Stevens reports.
Once again, smokeless chimneys are appearing in the Lancashire cotton towns as the mills close down.
At one point, Lancashire was producing a third of the world's cotton goods. But in the early 1950s, with manufacturing moving abroad, Lancashire's mills closed at a rate of 1 a week. Now, a project in West Lancashire is bringing those skills back. Licence to Sew is being described as the next part of the Industrial Revolution. The aim is simple: to take local people and over the course of 10 weeks, train them up to be skilled textile machinists.
People on the course are taught a whole range of skills, from working with cotton to working with lycra, and they make all sorts of weird and wonderful things, from this Olympic leotard to this coat for a dog. And the idea is that they're well equipped to work right across the industry.
I had a career in hairdressing for 20 odd years, and it worked around my other 2 children. It doesn't work around my youngest, who's 5. So I was looking for a new trade rather than just a job. So this opportunity come up, so I thought I'd give it a go, but I didn't think I'd be coming this far, as what I have done.
It's given me a chance of employment, and you know, the benefits of learning the skills.
So what difference has it made to your life?
Well, it's given me a good outlook, and probably would be unemployed otherwise.
The free programme is organised by West Lancashire Borough Council in partnership with the Sewing Rooms, a local social enterprise.
I always say, we sew and we're fabulous, and that's our motto here. And to see a young woman that has had no experience whatsoever, to see the progression and the skills that the women have gained, it's absolutely amazing to see.
Funded by the government, the project is open to anybody in West Lancashire who's over 17, and it's been developed in conjunction with textile firms.
Our industry was coming to us saying they've got vacancies that are coming out constantly which aren't receiving any applicants. They've got a major skills shortage in industrial sewing machinists, and they needed help, basically.
At the end of the course, participants are guaranteed a job interview with a local manufacturer. The aim now is for the project to be rolled out nationally. Mike Stevens, BBC North West Today in Skelmersdale.
World heavyweight champion Tyson Fury has been speaking ahead of his unification fight with Alexander Usyk in Saudi Arabia next month. The 35-year-old is still on the Fylde coast in his training camp ahead of a career-defining fight. Lennox Lewis, was the last boxer to hold all the heavyweight titles back in the year 2000.
If I can't beat Usyk, I'm no good, clearly. That's your headline. I don't hate him. He don't hate me. He's a good husband, good God-fearing man, so I respect him as a man, as a fighter. This is my time, my destiny, my era and my generation. Facts.
There you go. Now, it's the 187th Grand National on Saturday, and the three-day Aintree Festival gets underway tomorrow. We'll be there, of course. Richard should be there at this side of the track for us. So what's it like to take part in one of the world's biggest race meetings? Well, Richard has been down to a racing stables in Malpas in Cheshire, where they've been preparing half a dozen horses who'll be racing over the next couple of days.
A wet and windy run out on the gallops at Malpas in Cheshire, where it's full speed ahead in the run-up to the Grand National Festival.
It's massive, especially being local, being so close to Aintree and having grown up in the northwest. It means a lot more. And we've had a few runners there. We've never really had that many chances. Whereas this year it looks like we've got a couple of live chances, which is nice.
Nice for a yard that has quadrupled in size in the last 7 years, with 80 horses now looked after by 20 staff.
How much of a buzz is there ahead of a big meeting like this?
It's good. It's very nerve-wracking because you hope that they're going to run well, but it's not like any other meeting, isn't it, really?
This is a yard with a growing reputation. They've had almost 50 winners already this season, with half a dozen entered into the Aintree Festival as well, and with high hopes that a couple could even gallop home first.
And that's a pretty sensational chasing debut.
Including Irocco, seen here winning at Warwick a few months ago. And this horse, Gaborio, who'll be ridden by a young local jockey in his first ever race over the national fences.
Absolutely can't believe it. It's been a dream of mine since I was about 9. Wanting to have done this for such a long time, it's nervousness, but it's obviously a lot of excitement as well. Can't believe it's happening, and hopefully it'll go well.
Hopefully it will for Harry and for the two owners of the yard, both former jockeys themselves who used to compete against each other, with one of them even having a win at Aintree in the saddle.
I did, yeah. I beat Ollie, actually. We're in the same race.
Does he? I bet he never mentions that, does he, Oliver?
To be honest, we only worked out a couple of years ago that we're actually in the same race. But I won the equivalent at Cheltenham the same year.
You see, I'm getting the sense there's a bit of competition going on here. Do you ever say, right, come on, saddle up, let's go?
Not anymore, no.
The last race we had, we were upsize. It was just a race around the farm, and Josh fell and basically broke his collarbone. So we haven't done it since then.
That was the end of that, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you see, you're the bosses now, you see. You have to behave.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all changed.
The now very grown-up pair have trained a winner at the Cheltenham Festival.
Alongside Cheltenham, it's the two big meetings. And with the history of it and us being local and things, it'd be incredible to have a winner there.
And with a little bit of luck, who knows, the champagne corks may well be popping at a yard that continues to make great strides. Richard Askham, BBC North West Tonight.
Yeah, the Greenall Guerriero stables in Malpas, we wish them well at Aintree. Simon, how is the weather going to be for racegoers and the rest of us?
Well, I imagine the going would be very soft at the moment, based on what we've had so far.
Yeah, that's not the track, is it?
Exactly, it probably looks like that at the moment. But things are improving, actually, over the next couple of days. We're going to see some drier, brighter and warmer weather, particularly through tomorrow. But let's just reflect what we've had so far. This is just one stat from Blackpool. You can see we've already had over the average months of rain falling in just the first 9 days of April. So just an indication really of how wet it's been, and that follows the very wet March and February that we've had as well. But as I said, things improving slightly in the next couple of days. So ignore Storm Kathleen. This is not Storm Kathleen, that was last week, but high pressure is building in from the south, and it's going to mean that it's going to turn a little bit more settled, and the air is going to come in from the southwest. So temperatures will actually rise over the coming days, but then you can see the blue behind me there. That will come back in for the end of the weekend. Now, for the rest of tonight, we'll continue to see a bit of cloud, a few spots of rain clearing away to the southeast, and then we're looking at largely cloudy skies into tomorrow morning, but overnight temperatures down to about 11 or 12 degrees Celsius, so a relatively mild night to come. So we might start off on Thursday morning with a fair amount of cloud, but it should tend to break up. There'll be some decent sunny spells into the afternoon, certainly looking sunny in the Isle of Man for at least a time during the day before the cloud thickenings up here. Temperatures perhaps tempered slightly in the Isle of Man, but elsewhere with those sunny spells, look at that, 16 to maybe 19 degrees Celsius. So with lighter winds tomorrow and that fairly strong April sunshine, that is really going to feel very pleasant. Again, ignore Storm Kathleen, but just showing you really that high pressure is still there just to the south of the UK. It keeps these weather fronts to the north, and it means that it's going to be, again, relatively dry on Friday. Quite a bit of cloud once again. 1 or 2 spots of rain is possible on Friday, and temperatures coming down a touch, but still relatively mild on Friday. We'll see those highs getting up to about 14 to 17 degrees. And as I said, it will turn colder by Sunday.
So Friday, that's crucial, looking at Liverpool particularly, because it's Ladies' Day at Aintree, so everyone will have their finery on, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Much better than it's been recently. I think that's the key message that we're going to go with.
Lots of people will be
but
pleased.
That's not hard, is it?
No, true. Thanks so much for watching, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye. Bye.